Can you tell who's in the back studio? Did you
Well,
see?
we're live now.
Oh,
I can tell who's waiting to get in.
okay.
Yeah, so we're live now. So anyway, welcome to everyone. Happy Saturday, and here with we have a little roundtable discussion. We got Rodney and Larry, and we're expecting Maurice Thomas Jr. here shortly, and our discussion today is on investing in shared living spaces. Um, both Rodney and Larry are kind of getting away from physical real estate somewhat and investing in notes, but I think they still have their hand in it. And what happened last week is we had a discussion with Dr. Ivan, who may join us today, and um, and Paul Levine, the who wrote the Bible of Real Estate. And I just asked Paul Levine about his views on, because he's brought it up a few times in investing in self-serve storage facilities. You know that you don't have any tenants or toilets and termites. Well, you might have termites, but it can be structured so that it's a cash machine where you don't necessarily even have to have somebody on the premises. And then so he brought up group homes in California. He's living in California, and it's fairly lucrative there to have a group home in the sense that the state will pay for people to stay at the group home a fairly substantial amount, but that involves being licensed, involves having an administrator on the premises at all times, and there are a lot of things. And then, so it came up in their conversation that Maurice Thomas Jr. was doing something similar in Georgia and some of the other states, and we talked about what he was doing and what he's doing. We said my words were, we need Maurice here to defend himself. But anyway, I'm just going to summarize what he's doing. Is they've been either purchasing or leasing houses, and they've been setting it up to have four people living in rooms. Basically, they're renting rooms. Oh, here he is. Okay. Hey, Maurice, the your timing is perfect because I was just starting to explain what you were doing.
Oh,
Are you,
nice, nice.
can you hear us? Yeah. So you're here to defend your practices. So,
Can you guys hear me?
yeah,
Yep.
you're good. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Anyway, I just introduced how we got onto the subject from our conversation last year. We ended up talking about group homes, and then it came up that we thought you were doing something similar with shared living spaces, and and maybe you can explain what you and Nadia are doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So apologies, you guys. I was actually showing the house, one of our locations. I actually had someone that came at 12 o'clock noon and another one at 1 o'clock. And my commute is about 25 minutes. And long story short, when I went to power my computer on, it started to do some updates. It decided it wanted to update here. So I apologize for my
Yeah.
tardiness. But yeah, so shared living spaces. I know a lot of people. A lot of people, I would say, look at look at this space as considered like a group home. So there's two different types of it's two different entities, I would just say. Group homes are totally different from shared living spaces. We do have both. However, everyone knows that I am, or my baby is more of mortgage note investing. So we end up having some capital. Well, long story short, a deal came to what is it called? We had a deal that we actually matured, and long story short, the funds will give it back to us. So we couldn't deploy it enough to purchase a note, so we decided to look into the group home space. But more specific, what ended up happening is we had a group of individuals as well who had homes they were sitting on because they did cash for keys. So that's how we ventured down the space as relates to group homes. But then one of the things we noticed is that well, myself, I'm more so in the business of leasing beds. So the shared living space model works best for us. And then we do have like 2 properties that works for our group homes, which is married to a charity. So 2 different things, but in this case here, the shared living space itself, we primarily look for individuals who are kind of like in between. I won't say in between properties, but people who have 1 or 2 things, or maybe both, either bad credit or they actually have like a background. So, most of the time, individuals either have one or the other, which hinders them from, obtaining like a studio apartment or or a house or whatever it may be. So those types of individuals are someone that we primarily focus on. I'm not sure like what the question is. Hopefully, I'm answering the question there, Greg.
Yeah, no, it's good. But so basically, I had introduced the group homes and the shared living spaces as as being a different set of requirements, because that's
Yeah,
what, in the context here, that's what Paul Levine brought up in California. He said there's quite a lot of money in it because the state will pay quite a lot of money per month for each resident in a group home, but as you know, the steps to get licensed and regulated are much more strict than for the shared living spaces. And I think the shared living spaces, probably a month or so ago, we talked about Golden Girls living, right? Basically, people have a house and then they rent out rooms to other people, which is kind of informal. And in Canada, the Canadian government, we have quite a lot of a housing crisis in most of Canada, and I think a lot of the US does too. There's a lack of affordable housing for people that you described who just can't, they can't afford,
yeah,
a apartment or a condo even. They need a room. And I
yeah.
think Larry, you said you have some experience with and invest in multi-family units. So maybe you want to explain what you're doing.
Yeah, just like Maurice and Rodney, I do invest in mortgage notes, and I used to invest in single family homes, but I've also pivoted into investing in multi-unit apartment buildings. I look for anything between 25 units to 55 units, and typically, I look for a value play of adding. Rehabbing it to bring the rents up. And then, I look for a mixtures of 1 to 2 bedrooms on these multi-unit buildings. But with that, though, I have not done anything with the assisted living. I have done single family homes where I've rented out to Section 8 tenants. And so the plan is to also have a portion of those units rented out to Section 8 tenants.
I love that. I love that. You touched on something, Greg, earlier as it relates to the individuals who look at unlicensed homes, or not unlicensed homes. I would just say this. Here's something that I will throw out here. Okay. Anytime you have a group home, and it kind of like what Larry's saying, like assisted living, you're going to have like your zoning requirements. You're going to have your state requirements. Anytime you're getting any type of funding, at any level, there are going to be a lot of guidelines around that. Now, it is very lucrative. Like, you can make a lot of money here, but it's a lot of time associated with it. And if anyone, and I'm sure Rodney and Larry can attest to this, with mortgage notes, it's mailbox money. So more specific, it's kind of like what Larry's saying. Anytime we come across real estate, or someone like a struggling landlord, or someone has an Airbnb, Airbnbs are always perfect, because they're already furnished. We don't have to put much into it. But the most important piece is, because you are, in a shared living space, the space itself, it doesn't require a lot. Now, if you have a 3-bedroom home and you're trying to put 15 people in it, of course, like that's horrible. You want to make sure like you are at least abiding by kind of like what Larry said. If it's a multi-unit, of course you can get, maybe, I don't know what the let's just say Georgia. Here in Georgia, you have a 3-bedroom home. The most you can put in there is 6. Anything else will be considered like unlawful. So even then, with the type of space that you have in the demographic you are dealing with, I still wouldn't put 6 people in the house who don't know each other. Like, it's going to be horrible. Like, the culture itself, and then just the routine is not going to be as profitable or as people will probably think. Just because you're leasing a bed to someone for $825, do the math, 825 times 6. Still think about the overhead. You got 6 people. You make them wash once a day. Not once a day, but everybody pick a day that they need to wash. I'm just thinking more of like the utilities, the overhead, having all those people in it. Is it worth the headache? What if you have to put someone out, and then not including if they're sharing rooms with each other as well. But I just you made me think about the unlicensed portion, because it's a lot of people. What I call they get into the unlicensed space, and that's where I tell people to start first in this space. If you're going to the shared living space and you want to, because a lot of people want to focus on a certain demographic, like don't narrow yourself to a specific demographic. Just see what the market needs, see what individuals are looking, and then you can actually pick a population, no matter if it's at-risk children or veterans or anywhere where you can graduate to those state license, and where you're getting state funding, and it becomes that mailbox money. Because at the end of the day, you want to be as hands off as you don't want to be running, kind of like Larry said, assisted living. Like, you would need a CNA, you would need different people to actually give medicine and different things of that nature. I'm probably talking too much, but y'all can see I got scatterbrain. I just came back from showing the house, and I was thinking about some of the questions they were asking.
Yeah. So Rodney, do you have what are your comments on this so far?
Well, I'm soaking it all in. The closest I've come to that particular aspect is Section 8, and so I don't have any true experience in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That brings me to Klinger and Catch 22, but that's another story. The Section 8. But
yeah, totally different.
Yeah. So Dr. Ivan Terrero has joined us here from Florida, and so we've just been talking about the difference between group homes and shared living spaces, and how attractive note investing can be to either of those options sometimes. So, do you want to share some of your experiences with us or questions?
The only some background, since I'm from the Dominican Republic, my parents are immigrants, and part of my family members, when they came to the United States, they were somehow able to rent an apartment, but because for some situation, again, I was young, we were used to going to uncles' houses where they have a large apartment and they would rent out the rooms. This was the first experience with shared living space. And these would be people, again, recent immigrants, where they would rent out the room. They would have limited access to the facility. And some of them even became friends of the family. So, and it's a concept that is growing, and it's an interesting space to be in. It's again, I don't have any experience as an investor, but as an immigrant, a son of immigrants, I've experienced that firsthand.
Yeah, for sure. In the Vancouver area, there are a couple of large populations. One is sort of from Chinese, basically, and then others are from India. Mm-hmm. And their tendency is they buy a house in a neighborhood, and then the whole family stays in there, and then they buy the next house, and then the next house. Next thing you know, they own all of Surrey. Paul Levine said something about the Jewish community in New York. Like, if a house goes for sale in the neighborhood, they just immediately buy it. It's interesting.
Yeah, I've experienced that also in New York, where, again, mostly West Indians, they would come in. They would all live in one apartment, and then eventually they would buy a 3 or 4 family house. They'd rent the houses in the basement, and like you said, within 5 years, they owned the whole neighborhood. So,
wow, 60 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They, of course, there is a there is a clip from a show in the '90s called In Living Color. You should
Yeah.
look it up. It's called Hey Man, and they make fun of the work ethic of West Indians. And there's one part where one of the videos is that they're making fun of this Caucasian lady. She's going to give birth. She's in labor, and they asked her how many jobs she has, and she said, "One job. You lazy lima bean." And then they go on how many jobs that they have. And it's
Yeah.
just funny. You can't do that anymore. This in this day and age.
Oh,
When
no,
everything's
you
Well,
so
can't do
politically
that.
correct.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I know, you know, sort of the people who have been in the area for a long time. You know, they've got adult children living in their, staying in their rooms, not doing anything.
Yep.
While the immigrants are coming and buying up the neighborhood, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Mhm.
it's that work ethic. Like in the Vancouver area, you can't go into a gas station or with a convenience store that isn't run by mostly Indo-Canadians. So it's
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
and the job pays pretty well. Actually,
Mhm.
it's just that for some reason people don't want to do those jobs. But,
Well, Dr. Ivan, I mean, you touched on something West Indian. You know, the neighborhood that I live in, we have the guy across the street. I became really good friends with him, and he's West Indian, and there were a lot of houses, up for sale in my neighborhood. So his family is actually buying them up, and I actually talked to him. I'm going to be selling my house next year, and he's interested in buying my house. So it's
Yeah.
that family,
Mhm.
what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. That's group economics at its finest.
It's
Wow.
group economics at its finest.
yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes. The
Yeah.
idea is to bring, the first who comes over brings the rest of the family, and they
Yep.
keep the culture. What I find is they keep the culture intact at the same time becoming a productive part of the
Yeah.
the USA economy.
Absolutely. What do they do about their schooling? Do they homeschool or do they send them to private schools or public schools? Like how do they?
Mostly public schools, but again, because it's such I wouldn't call it structured. It's just the family values are there. The family, the mom and the dad, even though they're working like 2 or 3 jobs, they're
Yeah.
on the kids. They're on top of them. So that's been my experience.
So I heard it. I was on the news about because quite a few refugees are coming from Ukraine to Canada.
Mhm.
And there was a family that sponsored another family in Nova Scotia. I think it was in Nova Scotia, it might have been New Brunswick. But after a year, that family went out and bought their own home, and then they sponsored another Ukrainian family to come.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah. So, those people are motivated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Greg, you said something earlier about HUD, and you kind of touched on it. Matter of fact, I'm sorry, that was Rodney. Rodney, one of you guys was saying something about HUD. I
Section 8.
forgot who it was. Yeah, Section 8. Yeah. So what makes me think of it is, Greg, my question is this something similar in Canada? And not only that, my question is more so around when we do have immigrants themselves come to the States. I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. However, is it accurate to say that they have access to more capital than people who are in the States? That's not
Uh,
true, Dr. Ivan.
no, I don't think it's true. I think it's because they tend to save money by doing shared housing.
Yeah.
They can keep the money in the community. And what we do in the Dominican Republic, in the Caribbean, and West Indies is that we I don't know how to translate. It's like a fund where they'll pull in money together. Say if someone needs $1,000, they'll get 10 family members. They all chip in $100. They'll give that money to this person, to the family member. They'll spend it whatever it is. Of course, it has to be something legitimate. It's not to buy a pair of Jordans. And then
Right.
that person will pay back the funds on a weekly or biweekly basis. and then the next person in line will get that money and use that. So
Okay.
I don't know what the translation is, but in Spanish it's called san, and in Jamaica it's called susu. So it's basically you
Susu.
put money in a bucket, and they use that money for a purpose, and it's based on the Bible in Deuteronomy, where the Jewish people would lend money without interest to to their own peoples for business purposes.
I, s-
It's
I
kind
saw
of like,
that circulating. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greg.
yeah, no, that's similar to what Desi and Patrick have been talking about. Basically, the family trust and the you have
You could, yeah.
money within the family or the community in order to lift other people up and go. And so, yeah, no, it's really good. Anyway, you asked, Maurice, you asked about in Canada. Yes, we have, like every sort of municipality and province and the country has different things. But yes, we do have people who basically the state is paying for their housing. And it's not always good. Right now, there's sort of what they call single room occupancy housing in it's usually poorer areas of cities, and many people don't feel safe in them, and for good reason. Sometimes, because you have a high concentration of people, and then sometimes the landlords are more taking advantage of the situation. The buildings are old, they're not maintained, and there's there's a fairly big legal case in Vancouver where a building caught on fire, and and people died, and they're suing the people who are managing the building. And but we have a pretty major housing problem here. And then a lot of people in that situation will rather go live in a illegal encampment, right? And so that's kind of a struggle. And some of those people are nearly impossible to house, pretty much. Yeah. So but there is government money in order to provide housing, and most of the First Nations bands have money for housing.
Yeah. I want to ask. I want to go back to what Dr. Ivan was saying with the. I know you said it was in Jamaican was called susu, but what was it? What was it in?
It's called susu, and in the Caribbean it's called san, san, susu. So it's based on, just looking up while we were talking. It's based on Deuteronomy 23:19. It says, "You shall not charge interest on loans to your brother, interest on money, interest on food, interest on anything that is lent for interest." And it's the other verse is Psalm 15:5. Who lends money to the poor without interest, who does not accept bribe against the innocent. Whoever does these things shall never be shaken. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so that's the reference. And yeah,
That's perfect.
I remember from when I was a kid, my grandmothers were playing the san, and like, what's that for? And of course, they would say, "You don't know about this. Just shut up."
Well, the reason why I ask is because I would say probably every 30, 36 months, that will recirculate viral on the internet, and people will actually do these things. But is that the same thing?
It's not the same thing. What they're doing is a Ponzi scheme.
Ah, okay. See,
Okay.
you see where I was thinking. I'm like,
That's called, what that is. They call it, quote, the blessing, but it really is a Ponzi scheme. The susu, or the san, is where you have family members or someone that's very close to the family. They'll lend out money. They know they're going to lend out. Let's say, for example, it's $1,000, right? And there are 10 people. They'll know that everyone's going to get $1,000, and everyone has to pay that until the lot of time is up. What you were talking about, it comes up, like I said, every 36 to 48 months. They'll say, "Oh, this is a blessing. You put in 5,000, you get X amount." But that's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah,
got it.
Right.
And I know about the Dynasty Trust because I know Rodney has been coaching me on that a bit. So yeah, I know about the Dynasty Trust and how you're able to, use that vehicle of life insurance to kind of guaranteed the wealth and stays in the family for generations there. Yeah. Susu, okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
It's funny that you mentioned that because when I first got started with notes, uh, there was actually someone in Georgia who was interested, and then they came up with this with that blessing, and
Mhm.
instead of investing in the notes, they invested in that, and they lost all their money. So
Yeah.
Oh no.
That's a shame.
yes.
yeah, and it was $20,000, and I said I have a note for just for you, and anyway.
No, I know that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And Larry, I don't know. So long story short, like what would happen is someone would sing you one, no matter if it's my fraternity brothers, a family member, a cousin, they'll
Mhm.
say, "Hey, why don't you get on my board?" And I'm like,
Yes,
this don't
yes.
make sense. Like, what's the collateral? Like, I can't, it won't function. But when you just said the susu, I was like, that sounds like that. So that is a real thing. So I'm definitely gonna look it up though. I want to see how that works and
So one,
how it could work for me. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
yeah.
Greg.
So one is a philosophy, the other is a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Maurice and I have been trading notes about this, and I have this sense, a suspicion, and you're all over America, right? And maybe you can confirm this or not. Is there's as people are aging, they're downsizing out of their large family homes,
Mm-hmm.
and combined in Canada with the younger people can't afford to buy them. so
Yep.
so I don't know if you're seeing that in your regions, and also if that's an opportunity to do what Maurice is doing, is acquiring these homes and setting them up for multiple people. Is that a fair assessment of some of the trends that you're seeing?
I've seen that here in Southwest Florida because the market is expensive. A lot of people cannot afford the rents or houses. So I think Maurice, you should. Maybe we can look at um, that program here in this area.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Larry touched on the assisted living and different things of that nature. Of course, I would want to graduate to that. That way, it is, you're getting the funds from the state, you're getting the funds from different organizations when it comes to helping out, a certain population. But I know, for example, when you get to that level, you need sprinklers in your house. If you don't have that, of course, a lot of people won't have that in a house. That's going to be like $20,000 to $50,000 to even get that installed. Like it's levels to it where it becomes. Remember how we were in grammar school and different things of that nature? You got the fire alarm, someone will pull it. You need to have that inside installed. It's so many things that it just makes sense to maybe start off with a shared living space, and then once you start cash flowing and have enough, you can actually just graduate and keep going to that next level there. So I'm definitely interested in it.
Yeah. So Maurice, maybe you can, because you do some things in your shared living spaces, like you install video cameras and you install digital locks on all of the doors. So what kind of things have you done to prepare the houses so that you have minimized the chaos that could happen when you get a bunch of people living in a house?
That's a great question. To totally be hands off and just have the mailbox money, we put digital locks on the front entrance, so we know who's coming in, who's coming out. Everyone has unique codes, even like down to the maintenance guy. We know who's coming in at what time and what's going on. We have cameras in the common areas, so just in case something comes up, we're not in the business of policing their belongings. However, if something comes up or something of that nature where we have to go look at the camera, so no matter if somebody like, hey, my bread is totally missing, like who's doing it? Like I don't like to be a crime stopper, that's not my business. But if it's messing up the culture of the house, that's something that we use the cameras for. And then we have cameras on the outside of the house, like the Ring doorbell. So again, we know who's coming, who's going, and then it just so happened that the Ring doorbells, they're able to see a good portion of the backyard and the front yard, so we can see like the block, we can see the traffic, we can see when it comes to guests, because we have a guest rule, like we don't allow people We don't allow visitation in the homes. And the reason why is because of the different demographics. Because you don't want, like, I wouldn't take my kids over and have them sit on the couch while I'm showing the house, because I don't know. I know the guy's background, but you don't know exactly if something will happen. You see what I'm saying? All it takes is a split second, So I have those conversations around visitation, and even then, I can't control my friend. If I go to the bathroom, my friend goes to another room because somebody got their door open. They're going outside to smoke a cigarette or something. You don't know. Like I said, those cameras help with that. I don't like to call it policing, but it's kind of like they see a camera, they're gonna be on their best behavior. So that's kind of like how that helps.
I think that helps with your, like, just cover your assets, right? Just to see
Yes.
what type of thing. And then I was just thinking, I guess with that assisted living, with your homes, do you have a liability insurance policy plan on that?
Absolutely, Larry. Absolutely. So that's a great question. So anytime, we lease someone's house, or someone says, hey, I'm having problems with this, like, we have an umbrella policy, kind of like what's taught through Desi and Patrick. Like, we have an umbrella policy that covers all that, and we take care of anything that's less than $500. So we're not doing roof damage. I'm not doing no HVACs. I'm not doing anything big. That's the person who's leasing to us. That's their problem. But that's a great point. Great point. Yeah. And then of course, all the doors, their own doors, they actually have a electronic code, like, to get into their room. And we have different tiers. Like, we have people who want to have a shared room with a shared bathroom, and then you have a private room with a shared bathroom, and then you have a private room and private bathroom. So we have those three different tiers, and it's based on the affordability. And it goes back to what HUD is. So we are using what Georgia is saying. Here is the amount that you can charge for a 1,500, whatever it may be, whatever the square footage is, and different things of that nature. I don't know it offhand. So, but we have the criteria that we use to know if someone could afford it. So if someone shows me, I'm in an area, guys, where Atlanta people can make fake pay stubs, and they're notorious for it. So this is just
Really?
through yes, this is just through experience. You'll ask for a pay stub, but what we have done lately is we have graduated to tax returns. So now all I'm looking at is how much did you actually make last year. So if I see anything less than 32, they can't afford the house. So we're not even going to go down that path. And it's not that I technically deny them, but again, it's off the HUD data. I'm not making this up. This is real numbers. So that was a great question. Great question, Greg.
Maurice, do you have to pass any community rules? And they're okay with having these shared living spaces or homes in their communities?
That's a great question. So it depends. It depends if it's an HOA. You can imagine how a HOA is. It's very strict. So for any kind of, right now, like the one property that we have in the HOA, we use that for our elderly. So we only have people who are getting disability or SSI, and we only use that for individuals that's 65 and older. No one's going to have a problem with anyone that's that age and over, because they're not active. They're not having people come over as much, and different things of that nature. So that HOA community, they're not too much worried about it. Now, if you have like a home that's close to a school, of course it will be some kind of like zoning associated with it. But the most important piece is, like, we make sure that we don't have that the demographic as the sex offenders. Like, we don't put those individuals in that home because of the proximity to the schools and stuff. So it just depends. And then another thing is like schooling, like not around schooling, but transportation. Like, no one told me to ever consider that when getting these homes. So that was one of my biggest mistakes. I was getting homes that wasn't close to like the one city that I have. It has no transportation, no bus system, no train. It has nothing, nowhere where they can call and get the services to pick them up. So that was my biggest mistake. And I have 3 of them in Griffin. I don't know. No one told me that. I wish I would have had some coaching.
Yeah. I had an experience. I drove a U-Haul to Chicago, right, for my brother-in-law. And I took it to the U-Haul dealership, and I says, "Well, where can I get a bus?" And he looked at me. There are no buses. I thought, the Chicago Transit Authority, there'd be buses, but it's only really in the downtown core. There's nothing in the suburbs, other than the commuter train.
Right. Larry, I see you was about to say something.
I totally forget what it was. I got sidetracked by what Dr. Ivan just posted, but the YouTube
Yeah, go check it out.
for that living color. Oh, hey, Maurice, I was going to ask you. You said that you have 3 of them, 3 living assistant living spaces. Have you put all those in a living trust?
So what we have done to protect us, we don't have a living trust, but we have the dynasty trust that we're looking to establish. Now we have a trust, and then we have the LLC for the coverage, and I'm sure everybody does this. However, we are like totally removed. But the big portion of it is the houses are how can I say this? Is married to the charity. So it's a lot of public information, but it's not, our names are not on it, like meaning Nadia and I. So to answer your question, we do have a trust only for the 2 properties that we own, meaning like in our own name, but we lease them out, to the business. And then the other ones, they're a lease. So we only own like 2 properties, if that makes sense. And of course that's under a trust.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a great question. I hope I answered it.
Yes, and that's what I do with my notes. I buy them in a trust, and then I also, like when I was doing my single family homes and my multi units, I buy I buy them in a trust, and then the LLC is a beneficiary.
Yes.
Then the LLC is an anonymous LLC.
One of the things that Rodney and I think Rodney and I think Dr. Ivan was on this as well. Like when I did my first note about 3.5 years ago, we actually did it with a land trust, and it was about 13. Was it like, I don't know, Rodney, how many people was on that deal? Maybe about 6, 7. I'm not sure if he was on that deal, but it's the Alabama, the 8. Well, it was like 10 mobile homes, and it was 3 partials or something of that nature. I'm not sure if he was on that deal, Rodney, but Desi had it in the trust. And then not only did he have it in the trust, he actually had it, of course, set up that if someone was to happen, everyone would still continue to get paid and different things of that nature. So, but I noticed he used the land trust out of Chicago. So I know I'm very familiar with, leveraging the land trust via Chicago. It's about $150, but I don't know any much outside of that. Like I haven't leveraged it much.
Yeah, it sounds like what he's doing is, he's using a land trust, but then he's also like the beneficiary interest on the LLC. They split that up, or you can even like split that up within the land trust.
Yeah, that's not my expertise, Larry. I know that's yours, right up yours, because I know you probably have a bunch of investors that you work with.
Yeah, well, just not only that, but with the stuff that I used to do with the single family homes, I just didn't want anybody to, if they come across, like, I guess what I would be afraid of is those properties that are in your name. And if they see you have 2 properties and that they start digging, then they come across like other stuff and they go, "Oh, Maurice has deep pockets." And we're just, so as opposed to having a living trust and then having the beneficiary where your attorney, is the registered agent. So, and it just kind of stops there. But it's one of those things, right? If you get sued by law, you have to divulge all that information. But it stops it off at the past, where anybody just doing initial research, they'll just look at it and they'll go, with your 2 properties, they won't see your names on it. They'll just see, like a beneficiary interest.
Yeah, you spot on. You spot on, and I'll put it back to the group here. Thanksgiving of 2022, I got in a car accident. And long story short, it wasn't like a big accident. It was like a small collision. And it's like exactly what you said. They Google, of course, they got an attorney. And y'all, when I tell you, it went on for like over a year. And my insurance told me, "Hey, man, if it's anything over $50,000, you got to pay out of pocket." And when I tell you guys, I was so afraid. And that's what kind of jump started the trust. So I immediately went and I just started doing estate planning as well. Like I said, it punted. When that happened, I actually started to do estate planning. Like if something ever happened to me, what would it be? So, I did all that, the will, I did the trust. So that's kind of like what happened when it comes to those assets. But outside of that, we only own 2 of them, my wife and I, and then the rest of them, the one that's in Griffin is leased, and the other 2 that's in Cleveland, Ohio are leased as well.
Good.
Okay. So I want to bring something related to this here. I think somebody listening might be a little bit frightened at the moment. But I know that Larry does, and I know that Dr. Ivan, the note doctor, you offer passive investment. So you'll promise a return. I think 8%. I think Dr. Ivan, you have 8 to 10, depending on what it is, and all that happens is they put in the money, maybe $50,000, and you guarantee the return on it. And if something goes sideways in the deal, there's no risk to them, that they just have mailbox money. Because I think the sense that we can get is some of these things are complicated, right? When you start dealing with trusts and you start dealing with legal liability and all these issues. But I just want to say that, and maybe you do as well, Rodney, if you have an offer.
But one thing, Greg, you mentioned the word guarantee. We do not guarantee anything. These investments are still a risk, but we can ensure that their investment is collateralized.
I see.
So we don't want to say guarantee.
I think Dr. Ivan will return the money if it doesn't work. I think that's
so. If the borrower fails to pay, we will take back the note and make our investor whole. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. And I think Desi Arnaz has said that, says, if you have people investing, make sure they're okay. If something goes wrong, it's your responsibility. Make sure your investors are made whole, as Dr. Ivan said. So.
And the other thing is, at least I do, I make sure my investors are accredited. So I want to make sure that I'm not taking their last $25,000 to invest with, where they're going to use it for tuition, or they need it to pay for a brand new car or something, right? So you want to vet them. And then I also have a series of documents that I have the investors sign, that they realize that this is an investment, and there are risks. And whenever I hear the word guarantee, I cringe.
Okay.
Right.
Never use the word guarantee.
Yeah.
That's,
I stand corrected.
Yeah, Greg, you don't want to
Yes.
use that word, because if you use it, becomes a security at that point as well. Like you get in trouble with the SEC with that verbiage there. But man, Larry, you said you only deal with accredited investors.
I do.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense, because they understand, like, they're not, and that's something that Dr. Ivan and Rodney, I know they touched on as well, as it relates to, you don't want to do business with someone that's going to be losing sleep at night about their investment. They're especially like newbies, someone that's probably been doing it like in 32 months or less, 36 months or less. The point is, like, those individuals they're going to bring you more. They're going to be more of a headache. So yeah, I can see that.
Larry, what's your definition of accredited investors? Is there a standard level of income that there has to be, or new criteria?
Yeah, and and that's the thing. I just use like the I'm looking at the SEC guidelines.
Okay.
It's like a net worth over $1 million. Income over $200,000. So, and that and what I do.
That's besides the house.
Right.
Right.
And I have an investor questionnaire that I have them fill out, and then I have another document that I also have them fill out, just to make sure that they are not using this, that they're not taking this money from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and like Dr. Ivan says, if something goes wrong, I will make it right with my investors, because I don't take it lightly, somebody investing in me and in these projects. And that's why it's up to you to 100% do your due diligence on these assets.
Right.
So do you do more JVs, or do you do more hypothecations? Do you get more investors who are saying, here's this money. I like this return for the next 3 to 5 years, or is it more of the opposite? You do a lot of hand holding.
I do both. I've got I've got a handful of investors where they just want a simple passive return, and that's just simple interest. They don't want anything. I've got one investor where I initially set up a quarterly meeting with him, and he's like, Larry, I don't care how the sauce is made. I just want this, I just want the dinner, and just meaning I just want the payments in my account. And so he just wants more of a passive return. But I also have investors that they want to be involved. And so what I do is I have $250,000 and above. I'll do a straight JV deal with them. And those are the people that are more, actively wanting to be involved. Other investors looking for a higher return. And then anything below that, I usually do about a 6 to 7% simple interest.
Simple interest.
And then And then, if they do if it's under the 250, then, I bump up the interest rates a little bit for them. And then once, I have one that just started out with just investing 50,000, then another 50, and then another 175. And then, he's well over the 250,000 mark. So I just converted all his notes into a straight JV deal.
Nice.
Yeah, so that way, and that's just something that's just me personally. I know other investors that you just what you sign is what you sign. It's if they're doing 250 and above, I just figure, it's just nice to slide them into that JV role and let them capitalize on the overall investment with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Ivan, what's your sweet spot for your simple interest, like for notes?
Again, my sweet spot is 8%.
8.
And we've been having success, and I would like to imitate Larry to work with accredited investors, but I've been focusing on unaccredited investors that are looking to earn more money outside of the stock market. And I think I told the story of one lady who was investing in with someone who she wound up losing all her money, and it breaks my heart because she's an immigrant from Mexico. She works 3 jobs, and she had saved up $25,000, and she lost all that money. But anyway, that's what my initial focus is. But I want to graduate to the next level and imitate Larry.
Yeah, exactly. When I grow up, I want to be like Larry.
I don't know about that. You guys give me way too much credit.
Sounds like a book.
Ivan, you missed it. He said he closed on 4 deals just this week?
Yeah.
Very nice. 4 nice. See, well, I'd be happy if I close on 4 deals in a month. Actually, 2 months.
So
I got one more question, Greg, for Larry. Larry, how much of that is attributed to your information that you put out? Because I know you
Yes.
I love your content, man. How much of that is attributed to someone just finding you, someone doing their due diligence on you, word of mouth, or what happens? Is it more word of mouth? Is it more the marketing?
It's all of the above. I have investors talk to other investors, and I've had several people come that way to me. I've also I work the self-directed IRA list. And then, I always, open my mouth and talk to everybody, about, what I do if they're earning an above average return. And, it's just, and then the other thing is, and I do have people coming to me from the YouTube videos as well.
Nice.
all of the above.
All of the above.
Very good.
And that's the thing, Maurice. I mean, you have to be consistent with it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like clockwork. The self-directed IRA list that I have, I think I'm up to like 500, a little over 500 that I work. And when I say work, I send out a letter and a postcard, and I'm consistent once a quarter.
So did you purchase that list from a company, or did you do that by working the events?
Yep. Just no. You can go to the auditor sites, and then you can just do a search for like Equity Trust or Self-Directed IRA or Quest or some of the other ones, and then you can just pull a list. And now, Some of the lists you're able to actually download as an Excel document. Others you're going to have to go in and copy the property address and the mailing address, and then I have a VA that actually does that.
Yeah, there's a surprising amount of information in the public domain if you know where to look. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's easy to pull. Everybody has access to it.
So
I have one self-directed IRA owner. God, I think I've been mailing him for 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years. And so he'll just call me up and just, shoot the breeze with me. And he goes, I know it's like I can count on your postcard or letter like clockwork, within that week or two, that he's going to get it. And then he'll just call me up and just talk to me. And then, but the thing is, it's developing rapport, right? And so when people like and trust you, they feel comfortable with you. Then they'll invest with you.
Man, that's a great call out. That being disciplined and being consistent is my favorite medium is LinkedIn. Like I like LinkedIn. And then not only that, like you said, people start to like you and you start to build rapport, but it takes time. It takes time. No one's going to say, hey, because like you said, you only deal with accredited investors. So the individuals that, that I work with, they're pretty much new and they're non-accredited. And like you said, these are going to be some funds that they have saved up, maybe, they put some into a 529 plan, but they know that they want to put some money to work as well. So it takes time to build that. I'm interested in how you built your fund. I want to talk to you about that offline, or maybe, I don't know.
Maybe next week that can be our topic.
Yeah, I could share that with you. And I can tell you one thing though is, when you do reach out to anybody about being a potential money partner, I think the SEC. I think it's like you have to have at least 3 or 4 contacts with them.
3 contacts within
3. I've always
a certain period.
Yeah, within like 60 days or 3 months or something. I've always tried to just do 4 contacts with them, and I never talk to them about a specific deal, right? And I'm never talking to them about, hey, I need to borrow money. It's just more about educating and then redirecting them over to, like my website or, my YouTube video. So that way they can watch the stuff. And then, then that'll prompt a conversation. And typically what I like to do, I especially like when I'm local, we'll go out to dinner or, lunch or, just meet at a bar and just drink, have a couple drinks. I not get drunk, but, have like.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's what you do. You lace the drink and that's how you get the money? Also, he spilled the beans. There you go.
Oh, there we go.
But you develop that whole rapport with them, right? So people get to know you and trust you. And then the other thing though too is having other investors, and that's where you have to have a good relationship with them, where they're okay with having other people call them. I have a couple investors where they do not want to be called and used as a testimonial, right? As a reference.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I will definitely be there next Saturday on time with my computer updated. I promise you.
You gave me the opportunity to tell the blue screen of death thing, right? I am the blue screen of death. Nobody will hear your screams because you sent me that little image of your blue screen. So.
Oh yeah, I was sad. It said 8 minutes until and I was like, how you click the button, like I get to it. They gave me the warning, and it's kind of like it kind of goes back to your everyday routine. Long story short, I'll just say that I just kept postpone 20 minutes, 30 minutes, close the laptop. Not even sure how that thing was still counting with the laptop closed and off. Like as soon as I turned it on, it said 8 minutes. I said no.
Yeah. So Rodney, do you offer do you take investors or do you do mostly are investing yourself?
Well, I've been investing with my own funds, but I am definitely looking for investors. I just haven't had a deal that someone was interested enough to invest with me yet. So
okay, yeah,
I'll get there.
You'll get there, yeah.
Well, hey, Rodney, another thing that you could do too is you can just arbitrage the deal. Don't do like apples to apples. You need apples to oranges. And when I say apples to apples, if you're trying to, get into the note space, don't take a deal like a note deal and try to sell it to me or Maurice or, Dr. Ivan or even Greg, because more than likely we already have those contacts with
Right.
that note
Oh,
source,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what you should do is, find a self-directed IRA owner that's looking for a specific rate of return, and find a really good performing mortgage or deed of trust. Do not do a contract for deed. Do a mortgage or a deed of trust that has a really good pay history, and then you just arbitrage the difference. And then, build up his portfolio or her portfolio. And what you can do is, depending on the amount of money that they have, you can take some of that and buy, like, say, if they only have like a certain amount, where if that certain amount will cover 5, you can actually take one of the 5 and add that to your portfolio, to where you're building up your portfolio as well. But then you're also able to, like, pull out anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000, if that makes sense.
We'll talk more on that, Larry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like Rodney. We all have notes. However, we run out of capital, and of course we we like that, So that's kind of like where I'm at. I ran out of notes, but I want to make sure that I can continue building that portfolio there. But like you said, a specific niche is the self-directed IRA, huh? Okay.
Well, and I'll tell you another like a pet peeve of mine is, I hear people, other like note gurus or whatever say that if you have a deal, it's easy to find the money. And I'm telling you, I 100% disagree with that. You need to lock up the money first.
Yes.
Finding the deal, especially in this. I mean, just not in this space, but in all spaces. But especially in this space, because it's such a close-knit space that if you burn your bridge, they will 100% blacklist you from ever buying anything from them again. And that's,
really?
It is like vitally important that you work on securing funds now and have a, like a soft commitment that, hey, Rodney, I'll fund you $50,000, and you can go out and buy something $50,000 and below.
Yeah.
And just don't, try to get it under contract and then hope and pray and then market, because that's what, once again, that's where it takes that time to build up that relationship.
Yeah.
It's like, you're trying to, dating somebody, right? It takes time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've never wanted to go out after a deal and then try to hunt for someone for that deal, because you'll hang yourself.
Yep, 100%. I know of 3 people right now that's happened to them, and unfortunately, they were blacklisted from the seller, and it's sad because they were given wrong information.
Mm.
So what were they trying to do? Like be a broker or something? Like a wholesaler?
No, they were actually trying to buy the deals themselves. I think if I remember correctly, I think they had like 3 or 5 notes locked up, agreed. And then, so they went out and worked this tape, figured out what they were going to offer. They presented the offer, and then the seller accepted that offer. So they didn't have the funding to buy that. So what they started to do was they started to market for those deals to find that money for that deal. 100% bad idea to do it that way.
Wow.
Yep. And that's why it's important, right? If you are in a spot where you don't have anything like deals, like performing or non-performing notes under your belt, if you happen to have experience with real estate, say I was buying, 5 to 8 houses a month, rehabbing them, selling them, flipping them, subject, all that stuff. So, I was using those as case studies, along with, when I started buying these notes, I was using those as case studies. But if you didn't have anything, what you could do is you can easily go to, like, say, Paper Stack, or look at one of your sources and evaluate it and just do a simple case study of it on, like, this is why I think this is a good deal. This is a performing note. It's going to pay off whatever. And, like another pet peeve is when somebody gives you an ROI, it's a cumulative ROI, right? It's just for that year. You always have to project it out for how long you think you're going to hold that money, and do an annualized rate of return. And so that go over that. So when these investors are looking at that, if they have these annualized rate of returns and they compare it to these other vehicles, and they're like, that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. You're starting to sound like Desi and Patrick a bit, with the due diligence, especially around if someone reaches out to you with a note, making sure that they are the actual owner of it. You don't want to be a part of a daisy chain, like you're saying. I think that's what they call it, daisy chain, right? Dr.
Yep.
Ivan and Rodney.
Yep. Yeah, daisy chain. Yep.
This is good stuff.
Okay.
So next week, Larry, that's what we're talking about, how to build a bigger fund or fast,
Yeah,
especially with accredited investors.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And maybe with the SDR, I mean with the self-directed RA as well, like how to look that list up.
Yep.
And I think maybe Paul Levine will join us next week too. He had some ideas along those lines, so it'd be a really good discussion. Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say before we come to a close, because I know I have to run. Maurice gave a great video. I don't know if it was this week or the week before, but he put a quote in there that I just love. Free time is worthless without money. And how does it go, Maurice? I'm sorry, I might have butchered it. Money without free time is worthless, and free time without money is pointless. Right?
Yep.
Did I get it right?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I see Larry living that when he posts his personal stuff, he's enjoying the fruits of his labor.
Yes.
And just it doesn't happen overnight.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I admire that. I admire Roy. What's Roy's last name, Dr. Ivan? Roy
Epstein.
Epstein. I like Roy's content, and I love Larry's content. Like it's a balance. Like you see them in the professional light, you see them with their families, and you see what they do as it relates to their business. It's a balance between all of them. And like Larry said, he's disciplined with the posting. He'll let you know what's going on and how he's divvying out his time. I could tell. I could look like, oh man, he's doing this. He's looking at a tape. He's looking at this.
Well,
I love it.
Maurice, and that's the other thing, right? Because it goes back to if somebody's interested in funding your deal for you, and if they come across your LinkedIn, your Facebook, or your YouTube, or Instagram, or TikTok, they can see that you have a life outside of real estate, or being a dentist, or working for the government, or doing something else, right? It's just not all business. You're out doing things, and so that way they get to know you as a person.
Yeah, that's a good point. I struggle with putting personal stuff on the net now because
I agree.
Because it's a balance. Like everyone, I don't know if you do this on your handles either, Rodney or Dr. Ivan. Like you get so many people who want to look at your content, like so you start friending everybody, So then it becomes, do you post that personal stuff, if that makes sense, So
Absolutely,
it's a good point. Maybe I need to differ.
I'll tell you one thing. No one's interested on knowing what a dentist does, so don't worry about that.
They're interested in the new doctor, though.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So on that note, come back and we'll discuss. Larry's going to do a little discussion about what he does for creating a. How would you describe it, Larry? What's the right word to use for this? So,
I guess it's just about sourcing, self-directed IRA funds. Just how to build up your funds for whether it's going to be note investing or assisted living projects or rehabbing properties.
So it's a kind of group fund, of investors. So, okay, awesome. Anyway, so this thank you everyone for joining and chipping into this discussion. This is great. I'm gonna send a transcript out for everyone. So, and we'll see you again next Saturday.
All right.
See you guys.
See you guys.
Thanks. I'll be waiting for your call, Larry.
Okay, I'll call you right now.
Okay, thanks.
All right. See you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Greg.